Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the Soul Purpose Show. It is Women's History Month. We missed you all last week just because we were tired. So we did a replay of our Black Panther show. But I am here. I am by myself in the Soul Purpose kitchen because it's Women's History Month. And my husband loves all things women, but he was like, y'all can have this. Y'all can have this show. So, like I said, it's Women's History Month, and I really wanted to take some time to celebrate all things Black women. I think oftentimes in this conversation about the celebration of Women's History Month, we kind of get lost in the shuffle. Nothing wrong with other cultures celebrating their achievements, but I think that Black women, particularly after this last year, there's a lot to be celebrated this month and every month. And so the actual theme, I looked it up, the actual theme for this year's Black History Month is what did I say? Black History Month, Women's History Month, one to say. Women's History Month, and it is the valiant women of the vote refusing to be silenced. As you know, last year was the centennial celebration of the 19th Amendment, where some women were granted the right to vote, but not all, we know that. And so I wanted to, in light of everything that happened last year, the organizing that Black women did, Black women flipping Georgia blue. We have a Black woman as vice president of the United States. I wanted to invite some women onto the show who I admire and who I believe are just bad to the bone. And what better way to kick off Women's History Month on Soul Purpose Show than invite the queen herself, my mama. My mama is on the show. Hey, mommy.
Good morning, Monica. Thank you for that introduction. And I will say the traditional standard phrase. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So look, my mom watches like every Saturday, pretty much every Saturday. And so I said, it's Black History Month. Would you want to be a guest?
Women's History Month.
It's Black History Month. I think it's okay. So full disclosure. So I had to do a speaking engagement like last year to a women's lawyer group. Okay. And I was very clear that when I think about history and I think about women's rights, I look at it through the lens of being Black first.
Okay,
so
I got
probably subconsciously I'm defaulting to Black History Month because that's what I see first. But y'all know it's March. Black History Month is 365. We celebrated in February. It's Women's History. But anyway, so
okay, got it.
I called my mama. I said, "Mommy, you want to be on the show?" She said, "Sure. What are we gonna talk about?" I said, "It's Women's History Month. We'll figure it out." So my mom, we figured it out and we talked and we brainstormed. And so we have something we're going to discuss. It really is going to be kind of conversations that we have. I call my mom every morning on the way to work. And so these are probably just conversations that we have on a regular basis. And y'all will just be voyeurs into our conversation. And I'm going to try to cook, right? So I'm by myself. So we're going to see how this works.
Multitasking.
I'm trying. I get that from you. So go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me, Monica. And I do watch the show when I don't have meeting conflicts. And y'all are doing a wonderful job with this.
Okay.
Yes. And if I don't see the initial show, the live show, I will watch the recorded show. Yes.
So this is the Soul Purpose Kitchen. My husband has decided we're kind of back and forth. And so I try to cook some of my favorite things. And so last night I was talking to Keith. I said, okay, so one of the things my mom and I like to do is I like brunch. I think my mom likes brunch too. As you all know, I like a good cocktail. My mom will dabble sometimes. So I'm going to make some champagne because there's a good brunch. What good is a brunch without some cocktail and champagne being the base? And I'm going to also try to cook. And so I was trying to think of my favorite dish that my mom makes, because if anybody's been to our house and has eaten my mom's cooking, it is the best. Argue with yourself. My mom's better than y'all. And so I am a huge cornbread person, right? So Keith was like, "Oh, you can make the cornbread your mom made." So my mom makes, I don't know what she does to the cornbread. It is absolutely delicious. but she puts cheese in it. And so I like waffles and I like cornbread. I said I was going to try to make cornbread waffles with cheese, but I've never put cheese on a waffle iron. So if I burn it up, then y'all are seeing this real time. So
Okay.
So what do you do to your cornbread, Mama?
Well, oh, let's see. The cornbread that Keith was talking about when he was here was made with the basic recipe includes butter. I mean, it's just
Lots and lots of butter.
it's butter, because if you can smell the cornbread when it's cooking, you can smell the butter, then you know you have it right.
Okay.
But
Right.
it's just regular recipe for cornmeal. I will use a kefir or a buttermilk. People call it buttermilk.
Mm-hmm.
And mix it all up. Add butter to the batter.
Okay.
I have a cast iron skillet. Add butter and a little oil, vegetable oil, and to keep the butter from burning in the bottom of that skillet. Sprinkle some cornmeal in the bottom of that, and just move it around in the bottom of the skillet. Make sure you have enough oil in there so when you put the batter in, the butter and the oil rises to the side of the cornbread.
It gets all crispy and stuff.
Yes, it gets crispy on the side. So
I'm a cornbread thief. My family will tell you I'm a cornbread thief. So my mama cook cornbread. I don't wait for it to get I'm eating it straight hot out the oven. So that's me.
So once it's partially brown or almost done, I will get more butter and cover the top so it comes out evenly brown on the top. And when it comes out, it's hot and ready, and people go for it. I haven't cooked cornbread in a long time.
I don't cook it because there's lots of butter in it and it's not good for you. But I do
right.
So substantive conversation. So it is Women's History Month. And I did a little bit of research before we got on just to kind of find out what the history of Women's History Month was. And it really started as Women's History Week in 1981, and then in California. And then a group of women in California, I guess, went to DC and talked to Congress and talked to Jimmy Carter to make it an official month. And so we have been celebrating Women's History Month, whether it's a consistent thing or not, but here recently it's been more consistent, but we've been celebrating Women's History Month since 1982 nationally. So when you think of Women's History Month, because I know we've had these conversations from a generational perspective, you're a working mom, I'm a working mom, and so I kind of bounce things off of you just in terms of your experience in the workplace and my experience in the workplace, and there are some similarities. But when you think of Women's History Month and why it's important to celebrate, why is it important to you that we celebrate Women's History Month, particularly as Black women?
Right. Yeah. I guess two things come to mind, Monica. It's because we haven't had a true, a real story about our history. I mean, there are just lost nuggets, lost treasures of our history that speak to how resilient we are as a people and also as women. I mean, there's some horrors and tragedies as well, but I think through that suffering, we have grown stronger as a people. And the importance of recognizing the strengths that we have, and also not only the tragedies, but also the successes, and the people who have been pathfinders and just outstanding contributors to this country and to the culture. It helps the next generation. The next generation has a full appreciation for all of the major contributions that have been made to this country that have not been recognized in the past. And I think there is some transformation happening, which is wonderful to see, owing to some degree to COVID.
Right.
Yes. But the tragedies are coming to surface now, and people are realizing that there's a need for change in this country, significant change.
So, why do you typically when we talk about Women's History Month, and I have made it a point to, particularly with Miles, is to talk about the achievements of, I think him seeing positive Black men is super important, but I also think that it's important for him to recognize the achievements of Black women. And so, there are three of us, and our youngest is my brother. But one of the things I do think that I applaud my parents for is that our parents gave all of us voices and encouraged me and my sister to be extremely independent and probably outspoken. If my daddy was alive, he'd probably say too outspoken at times, at least for me. But the thing that I think is so wonderful about that is the fact that my brother has an appreciation for all of the achievements of Black women, and he celebrates that. So in terms of just encouraging younger people, specifically boys, to accept and highlight and celebrate Black women when that may not always be the case in school, how do you make that happen? I mean, I know what you did for us. I mean, we had ebony books in our house, but how on a larger scale, because they're not necessarily teaching African American history in school. So how do you get that information to young people, boys and girls?
And I'm going to use a phrase that you're familiar with out of the past administration. This alternative reality that has been thrust upon this country over the years,
Mm-hmm.
About our contribution and the value of not only the men, African American men, but the value of African American women. It has just been suppressed. That seems to be suppressed. So I think it's the responsibility of family to come together and tell those stories. Some of the stories are difficult stories. If anyone saw the new Attorney General,
Merrick Garland.
Mm-hmm. Merrick Garland, yes. If you saw his testimony about his tragedy and how that impacted his life, he made the point of saying that his parents didn't shield him from that.
Yeah.
They told him about that, but at the same time, they encouraged him and helped him realize that they were blessed to have survived. How they were blessed. His mother was pulled from a group that was about to be killed.
Yeah.
And just elevated the story in a way that built his self-esteem and his confidence in his ability to go forward and do what he's doing now. I think we need to maybe change the narrative and not be influenced so much by what we're seeing on screen and what is the mainstream message.
Yeah. Because one of the things, and we've talked about this before, this concept of intersectionality. And one of the things, we talked about COVID space and how there's this racial reckoning. One of the things that bothered me, I mean, what happened to George Floyd, for sure, absolutely. It was on camera. We are absolutely focused on that. That should be what it is.
Eric Garner, too. I mean,
Eric Garner, Ahmaud Arbery.
Yes.
There are a host of Black women, besides Sandra Bland, there are a host of Black women that have, Breonna Taylor is what comes to mind from last year. And so she got lost, but for, women speaking out and saying, listen, George Floyd's situation should absolutely be talked about because it was absolutely ridiculous. Ahmaud Arbery's situation should be talked about as well because that was absolutely ridiculous. But sandwiched between those two was Breonna Taylor. I think the anniversary of her murder was either yesterday or today.
Right. It was this week.
And so she got lost in that conversation, and that happens so much because the focus is so much on Black men. And not saying that it should not be, but we get lost in that conversation too. And so when you think about the repercussions of what happened as a result of Breonna Taylor's murder, the guy wasn't charged. And we can have a whole conversation about why Daniel Cameron decided not to charge the cops. But in addition, I know that her family, this didn't work. The cheese got stuck.
I told you that.
It didn't work. I thought it was gonna work. It didn't work.
Okay.
It didn't work.
Okay. I told you can't put cheese in a waffle line.
This is a fail. Y'all see this? Y'all gotta listen to your mamas. I put cheese in it to see if it will work. It won't work. It didn't work.
Oh well.
I'm gonna turn this off and we just gonna keep it moving. It's good though, but it didn't work. I'm gonna put it in the oven. It's good though.
Well, the cheese that Keith was talking about, it was actually cornbread, and it was Italian seasoning in it because we had a soup that went with it.
This was very, very good. The crumbles are really good. I don't know what to do with it, but I messed it up.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right. So
so Breonna Taylor, that was probably that caused me the most angst last year because I
okay.
know
I
that.
heard you.
Okay,
I think I heard your question.
yes.
Why is it that you is the message, or what you're asking is, why is it that the men are getting more
It seems like we
consideration?
lost, or unless there's a whole lot of uproar and we make a lot of noise.
Right.
Situations that similar as like domestic violence.
Yeah.
Black women are victims of domestic. I don't know the percentages, but there are a lot of Black women that are victims of domestic violence. I had two classmates that were killed within a year as a result of domestic violence. But the face of domestic violence isn't ours, or when you talk about the face of these police killings and police brutality, it's not ours. So
But
it's Black women's face. And so I'm just kind of trying to get your thoughts about.
okay, there is a cultural shift, I think, that's happening, social and cultural shift. And I think it's across the board. I mean, if this past week there was a discussion about the two female military officers who were, their promotion was held up under the past administration
Right.
because their superiors felt that it wouldn't be accepted, even though they qualified and were justified in making that being promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what there has to be a persistent drive and tangible effort in making sure that you dispel or push back on this assumption that women cannot do certain things. I
Right.
mean, women are and that persistent message and the effort and action of women coming together and making sure that women are treated equitably and they're given consideration when what you're talking about, when violence is inflicted on a human being, that's a human being, whether it's male or female, they should receive the same consideration and be treated equitably and fairly. So I think there is I won't call it a groundswell, but I really think there is. There is, maybe it is, I'll call it a groundswell and just put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a groundswell among women and those who support this transformation that I think we're going to see a change. And Brianna's family has said that they are not going to, even though they've been compensated, I believe,
Uh-huh.
they are going to continue to fight until
Yeah.
they get justice. So, and I think that's the key. You cannot give up. I mean, you can't. If our ancestors had given up, where would we be right now?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember just having that conversation with you and just being so um irritated isn't even the right word. I just know that in certain spaces, our voices and our stories are silenced. Like as an example, um, a couple, and there's no really safe space. We have to create our own safe spaces to share our story. So as an example, I know you don't watch daytime television, but The View, the talk show, The View, there's all these women, The Real, there's all these different talk shows where women are the focal point, but there's no real show. For a long time, there was no show where it was Black women talking about Black women's issues, highlighting and supporting us, just period. And so maybe it's 2017, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there was a show on TV1 called The Sister Circle. And it was all Black women. One of the hosts was Rashawn Ali, who is a Bratler, who was my freshman sister. She's also a soror, who was on the show. And I tuned in. Now, whether or not a lot of people tuned in, I don't know. But I tuned in just because there were 4 or 5 Black women on the show, on a Black network, talking about Black women's issues, things that you're like, the maternal mortality. You're not going to hear that on mainstream news, but Black women I've never given birth, but Black women are dying in childbirth.
Yes, right.
Because there's racism,
Healthcare.
racism in healthcare because of the belief that Black women have a higher pain tolerance than white women. I hurt and bleed just like everybody else. And so when I'm screaming and saying I'm in pain, you should have the same response for me as anybody else. But my point is that Sister Circle is canceled now. It got canceled last year. which was sad to me and frustrating at the same time because we had a space where our issues were elevated, where our issues were discussed, Black women celebrating Black women and Black men, but it was something for our culture to talk about the things that aren't talked about on mainstream. And so now
think,
we're in a situation where we don't have any more space for our voices. So
oh,
how
no,
do we,
I think there are, excuse me, I think there are platforms. I mean, technology has provided platforms for and opportunities for more voices and more issues to be shared across the country. And I think you're seeing that occur. If the message of that show resonated with uh, people who are producers and developers of shows, I would venture to say capitalism kind of drives this.
yeah.
You will find that uh, that opportunity or that space, as you say, will not be lost. There will be opportunities, and then just the small group discussions sometimes are very productive in building a collective
Yeah.
around a single or an effort or a thought. So the technology is helping in that way. I believe it's. I think there's some hope with that, even though sometimes things don't turn out the way you want.
So I'm going to switch a minute because a lot of the conversations that we have when I'm in my car on the way to work are political in nature, just because I am a political junkie and my mom is probably a politico, but my mother is well read and reads everything, and then sends us messages with links and is bothered when her children don't read what she sends immediately. But we'll read them slowly. I read everything you sent me from preparation for the show. I read it at 3 o'clock this morning, but I was reading them. But anyway, so my mom is in a session. She reads. One of the things we talk about a lot is politics, and we know last year we had this conversation throughout the presidential election. In South Carolina, Black women by and large responsible for Joe Biden getting the nomination.
Mm-hmm.
They were responsible for, I mean, because we put pressure, because I remember when he got the nomination, I said, if he wants to win, he needs to put a Black woman on his ticket. I don't know if us screaming loud about that was the reason that he did it, but we'll say that it was. He put a Black woman on his ticket. We, after that, did what we did in the community, organized, got him across the finish line. Stacey Abrams in Georgia,
right,
split Georgia blue, not only for the president, but for the two Senate seats.
800 new vote, 800 new voters.
800 new voters.
Oh, boy.
1,000 or 800 new voters.
According to one of the articles I read, I think it was People, they recognized her among the women they recognized in Women History Month.
Mm-hmm.
And their count was it said over an estimated 800,000, so it could have been over.
That's huge. That's huge.
That's a lot. That's a lot of votes.
And then Trump may go down because of Tish James in New York, the district attorney in Fulton County, and it's my understanding that the person that's leading the investigation in DC for the January 6th is a sister. I have not researched that, but that's my understanding. But anyway, Black women are all over the place. We've been all over the place forever, but last year for real was all over the place. We've always said that we have political strength. How do we capitalize on that though? Because there's this belief, because I know during the election, there's a lot of guys that were saying, well, y'all ain't got to worry about the Black women because the Black women are going to always just vote Democratic. And so we get taken for granted, but there's a lot of political strength among Black women. How do we harness that power and use it for our advantage? I think us harnessing our power was one of the reasons why Joe Biden picked a Black woman to be his vice president. I don't have no facts to support that, but that's my belief. But how do we harness that power to get what it is we want? Because if we don't vote, we're not pulling our cousins and brothers and whatever to vote. So how do we harness that political power? In your opinion?
Well, that's a good question. And by all means, I'm glad to say my opinion, because I don't stand as an authority on setting direction for, but the momentum, sometimes momentum is hard to sustain over time,
Mhm.
but I think that makes all the difference. And with this country in a state of transformation, it's moving into a different direction
Mhm.
based on what we experienced in the past administration. I think that's motivating a number of people. It's motivating corporations to reach out and make sure that they are not parties to what the previous administration was attempting to do.
Right.
This constant divide. It's not healthy for the country. It's not healthy for democracy. So I think some people are realistic about this, and they realize that if this country is to survive, if it is to survive, we have to come together, and that includes the sisterhood that you're talking about, and we have to stay vigilant and active in pushing for the change that we want. I think it's important to come together with an agenda that everyone can move forward with. I mean, so everyone's on the same page.
Right.
It really is a collective, and you're not having splintered. Because once people start splintering and going in different directions, it weakens whatever it is that you're trying to push forward. And uh, in contrast to what on the Republican side, they seem to have a strong following. It's just going in a strange direction. But I think that collective, just coming together and staying vigilant, staying active, maintaining the kind of persistence and dedication that a Stacey Abrams showed us, being committed and being willing to just uh, do the work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically what it is. I mean, the environment right now with this administration, it it presents an opportunity that we should not ignore.
Yeah.
We need to capitalize on it. So
I'm really hoping that that with this midterm election, that more Black women run, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's
mhm,
for federal office. I
mhm.
really hope that more Black women run, and I also hope, and with Jamie Harrison at the helm of the DNC, I'm hopeful. But I also hope that when these Black women put their name in the hat, that you have folks
Yeah,
supporting.
right, exactly.
And I think that's been the challenge is, we may decide to run or have a desire to run, but we put our name out there and we may not necessarily, because it takes money to run for office. We may not necessarily get the support at the highest level for whatever the reasons are. Like Cori Bush is a prime example of someone that was the
Grassroots,
congresswoman
yes.
from St. Louis.
That,
I mean, the grassroots effort, and she's up in DC taking
right.
names, and she's honest, and that's the type of I'm a fan because of that is the type of leadership that we need in DC for someone who's going to call a spade a spade. And I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to represent my constituents and speak truth to power. And so when she's telling people you are a racist, I'm sorry that you are upset that you are a racist, but you are a racist. Let's deal with that and let's fix it. But she's calling people out, and I think that we need more people like that who are unapologetic.
Well, it's called representative government, democratic and representative government. So once you understand the condition of your constituents,
Yeah,
you move in and you have a position of authority. You try to make your constituents' life better and give them opportunities that anyone else would have. So it's representative government, and she's doing a great job representing her constituents.
yeah.
And if she stops representing her constituents, unlike some of these folks that are in office, you lose your seat. But some of them, um,
There's probably should be term limits. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but there probably should be term limits for some of the people.
and what I want to say this political discussion is it's important once you get people in office, and this is more of a local county thing, I guess national as well. Once you get people in office, don't just hang it up and say, I voted and I'm done. You
Mhm.
have to you have to support that individual when they are in office. You go to the county commission meetings, you go to the city commission meetings, and provide the support that they need to get their agenda approved and voted upon. So sometimes that happens. Once people get in, we just kind of back away and say,
back
let them,
away.
yeah, let them handle it. They, you know, I voted for them, let them handle it. But that's not the way that works.
Well, we're taking a break. This is In Touch News. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, I'm gonna try something else because my waffles were a fail. I'm gonna try.
I told you not to put the cheese in there.
I thought it that they were thinly
See,
sliced, and I thought this is
that's what, when you get grown, you don't listen.
I know. Sorry, they taste good, but they just don't know. So we will be back after the break. I'm gonna make a coupe champagne cocktail, and I'm going to make a sandwich on this grill that I really, really love because it has croissant and butter, and it's really not good for you. So we'll be back after the break.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecues? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
Thinking politics? Tampa Bay Politics is on every Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Angela Birdsong. Tune in right here on In Touch Radio.
Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe.
We're back.
Wherever we go, we are go.
All right, mommy, can you hear me? You take yourself off mute. You take yourself off mute.
Okay.
So we're back. Welcome back. If you missed the first half, I am Monica. My husband is not here, but it is Women's History Month, and I'm here with my mommy, and she is spitting wisdom and knowledge as she always does. And really, what you are seeing is our legit conversations, like every day. It's probably too heavy for most, but it gets me. It gets me going in the morning, sometimes probably too much. So I walk into work like power to the people. And I always be power to the people when I go in my office. But anyway, so I'm gonna make a cocktail that I really like. And in order to make this, I got Black Girl Magic champagne. Black Girl Magic champagne. So I have never had this before, but I hear wonderful things about it. I got it because it's a winery that is owned by two Black women, two sisters, the McBride sisters. So I went to Total Wines yesterday and got got everything in Total Wines that they had that was McBride sisters. So I have everything that they've made. And so I would encourage you to support these women. And so that's that. So I'm gonna make a cocktail real quick. But as I'm making this cocktail, I want to ask you, Mom, one of the things I kind of mentioned this before. So before I do that, I'm gonna tell you what's in this cocktail. So we have champagne, we have some strawberries I'm going to muddle, we have some vodka, whatever your favorite is. I think y'all seen me make this before. I'm gonna make another one too that you haven't seen me make. And then some simple syrup. So that's what's going to go into our champagne glass. All right. So Mom, one of the things I did want to ask you is, you have raised 3 children. You and Daddy raised 3 children. And we have often been told, well, at least I've been told, I can't speak for Erica. I've been told that I'm sometimes too opinionated and too vocal, but I shared that growing up, that was encouraged. And so I want to know, as a parent, particularly as a woman, Black woman, raising children in the 70s, early 80s, and this is before, sexual harassment, before women's, in terms of from a legal perspective, women were really, really supported. We were technically supported, but let's be real, not really. Why it was important for you, and I guess speaking on behalf of Dad, to ensure that your girls specifically use their voices and were independent. Because I tell people all the time, when I was growing up, I don't ever remember my mom saying, make sure you get, when you get to college, you find you're a really good man, and just whatever, talk. I don't remember those conversations. I don't remember having dreams about my wedding, just because that wasn't something that we talked about in our house. So why, number one, which is not a bad thing, why? There's no shade to those parents who do. I get it, but that was not our reality. My mama was like, get your degree and be single. Do that. Live your life. So
and I'll be quick with this. I still have my high school memory book. And if you look at my memory book, that was my goal. My goal was to go to college, graduate, travel, da 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 da. Things don't always happen the way you envision. But
I'm the first, so sorry.
No, that's no, it was fine. It's very fine. But your husband my husband was an attorney, so he was convinced me otherwise. But one of the I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No. Ask me your question again. I'm sorry.
Why was it important? This is
that's what, when I think about your father, that kind of throws me off key.
Anyway, why was it important for you and Dad to raise Eric and I to be independent and be unapologetic in you?
Okay, I got you. Well, one of the things, and this was funny, when I used to tell you all, and that I didn't want to be a grandmother until I was 70. Remember that?
That is a true statement, and I am happy that you were admitting that publicly. Right. My mama said, she said clearly.
I would get in your face and say, I don't want to be a grandmother.
I don't want to be a grandmother until I'm 70 years old.
Go get your college degree.
Absolutely.
And do what you did. But make a life. But I think between your father and myself, and just making jokes and things like that, but it was just important for us to know what you all thought about your future, and to provide as many opportunities as possible. Your trip to Europe and Russia and all, it's important to set an example for each child to have. It was our view that it was important for each child to have their own space and develop their personality in such a way that it reflects who they are and what their desires are. So, you all were in separate schools for a while, because one of the concerns that we had was, okay, we didn't want this to be, oh, that's Monica's brother, or that's Erica's brother, that's Monica's sister. And people make assumptions about you based on your sibling. I mean, we realized that you all needed to work together. That's what that whole mega thing was. Yeah. You had to come together and support each other, but you really needed to develop your individual identity. So, and within that, be able to voice your views candidly and fact-based. I mean, that was, you need to make sure that you have your facts.
Yes, now that was true. So you can have all the opinions in the world, but my parents would, and mommy still does this. Where are you getting this information from? Well, right. I don't necessarily have the information, just how I feel. Well, the feelings don't matter. We need facts. We need facts.
And the why questions were always, look, there's a set of Encyclopedia Britannica's 3 sets. Go do the research and find the answer to your question.
Yes.
That was part of the, taking the initiative to do the research and find the answers and find the facts. But, and it helps formulate solid opinion. You can take a stand and be vocal and be assured that what you're saying is based on fact. But you all were, and I would just say that there was a community as well, and a family that poured into you all as well. So, the people that were your godfathers, your godparents, and people, the church especially, allowing you all to accept leadership or encourage you to do leadership, assume leadership positions in the church, to the degree that, you felt that was something that you could do. So, no, but I think all of that helped create that kind of independence and individualism that it's necessary for a person to have their own views about
You
things.
know what? Now there was this a couple years ago. There was an article that I read about, and either an article or maybe it's a news segment about girls being called bossy, right? And I know that I've gotten my share of that. So there's this belief, there's this thing where they don't say that to boys. So you have a boy and a girl, similar personality, both outgoing, both vocal, but there's this inclination to encourage the boy to be that way and to tell the girl that she's bossy, use it as a pejorative and tell her she's bossy to try to muffle her. And I know one of the things that I've done, particularly with my niece and my goddaughters, because they have that type of personality, is to encourage that. So what do you say, you know, for people who are watching, who may not be a part of our family and who aren't privy to us, when there are little girls or young girls who have that mindset, who want to be outspoken, who want to use their voices, but there's a community or there's a teacher or there's someone in society attempting to muffle their voices? Well, you know, what guidance would you give them?
Well, you know, if it's blatant, if it's something as blatant as that, I would definitely encourage the parent I would encourage the child to talk to their parents about it, and the parent to be involved. I mean, you all know, whenever there was an issue when you all were in school, we were there, and your father in particular would drop in periodically just to say that, you know, look, we're present, I'm present here, and I'm concerned about the you know, what's happening with my child. Some parents don't have that flexibility,
Yeah.
but I think it's important for young ladies who have strong personalities, and hopefully they're in an environment where, in school, where teachers can see that, appreciate it, and allow them to cultivate it in a constructive way. So it's important for parents to know know their child, know the teacher that they are going to interact with, have a conversation with the teacher and say, my child has a strong personality. One of your teachers said that, you know, told us that, you know, Monica doesn't think the rules apply to her, but we had a discussion with you about that. The rules do apply. Rules do apply.
I still have that issue, probably.
No, well, you know, I don't think some rules don't necessarily apply, and I think some rules are to be challenged strategically, and modified to accommodate the needs of people who have been left out. I mean, that's the evolution of this democracy. So um, there are some rules that don't necessarily apply, that should not be used against people. So, but anyway, I think it's important. Parental involvement is important. And if it's not a parent, someone who knows that the child, someone that's in that community, can connect with the child and be available to have a conversation with their teacher, to let them know that, you know, my child is a strong little child. We want to cultivate that. We don't want to stifle it.
Yeah.
We don't want to stifle their
and
progress.
that kind of piggybacks into another question, kind of along the same line. In the workplace, I know we've had this conversation before. When you are that same personality, because I have not changed, as you just shared. So anybody that's watching, if you're thinking that I'm a brand new person, my mother has already asserted that I have been this way since I was able to talk. So I'm not going to change. So get over it if you don't like it. So having said that, there's also, in addition to calling little girls bossy, in the workplace, when you are assertive, I think I've shared this with you, I can have the same opinion and voice the same concerns, probably in the same way, maybe a little more, you know, whatever, but the same views, the same conversation about the same issue as one of my male colleagues.
Okay, yeah.
And they'll be like, oh my gosh, that's such a good assessment. That's so wonderful. Whereas I get, okay, what are you complaining about now? Or why are you, what are you fussing about now? I get called being I'm fussy Whereas the man is all that, that's ingenious, what he just said. So how do you navigate that space at work? Because I get that a lot. And I'm sure that there are some women who are watching the show
That
that probably get that as well.
that they appropriate your idea or your statement and make it
They
their
appropriate
own.
your idea, and or because
Make
you
it your own. Make it their own.
make it their own, and or because you're a type A personality, that you get labeled as trouble or difficult or angry or something.
Oh,
Yeah, so that. So both issues.
I've experienced that in my work life.
See, it's not so. This is not something that's just me.
You know, I've experienced it, and I walked into an executive meeting, and one of the EDs said, "Here comes trouble."
Mm-hmm.
So we had to have a conversation about that. But if it's good trouble, it's okay.
Right.
They just have to understand that good trouble can be okay. Change, it may be difficult for some people, but if the change is good in the long run, it's okay. And thanks to John Lewis for putting that out there as a mantra for people. Hopefully they will understand that good trouble is okay. And I just didn't have it at the time when that ED said that to me. So, but I think he understood.
How do you? Because I've had that too. I mean, we've had this conversation, but that Black women are difficult to work for and work with. I know. Now, I've never worked. Ironically, I have never worked for a Black woman my entire career. I've never reported to a Black woman. I know Erica has. She's blessed because I know she had 2 people that she reported to that were Black women, very strong Black women, who both are mentors and I love. But I've never had that. So how do you address those type of comments? Because I know I've gotten those. Like, Black women are. No one's ever said that. They may believe that I'm difficult to work with, but no one's ever actually said that to my face. But I know that you and I had that conversation. Whoops.
Yeah, well, that was a tag that I hate to keep referring this to a personal experience, but
Sorry.
I did get tagged that way in the office that I was director of, to the point that an African American female decided she would file an EEOC complaint.
Oh.
But I think I told you about that. But it was based on colorism, and I think she was just being creative because she was on her way out. But but she got creative and decided she would
use that as a reason.
yes, EEOC complaint, was based on colorism. But so it surprised a number of people in the agency. But people, it's hard to it's really hard to give some kind of template for someone who's in a situation like that. This is the way you handle this, and there probably is one, but I can't. For me, I can share my personal experience, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be true to yourself. Know your facts. And in a conference room where you're being pushed back, or your ideas are being appropriated and dismissed as significant, but fashioned through the mouth of a male person, they're great, wonderful ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be reluctant in this day and time to bring that up.
Yeah.
I would, because maybe there are some people who are in leadership in the organization that don't realize that this is what is happening. It may be just part of the culture.
Yeah.
And that needs to be a cultural change. So someone has to be willing to step up and say, look, I notice this is happening. Women are coming forward with great ideas, putting them on the table. They are not acknowledged, but when it is translated through a male voice,
right,
not necessarily translated either, just repeated, it's, they get a raise, they get applauded, and get recognized. So you have to be willing to be a Stacey Abrams in that situation. Make a difference and bring,
Make some
yes,
noise.
make some noise, resist.
So
That would be my suggestion.
So I want to move to the importance of sister circles, which is one of the reasons why I did this. I wanted to do this series of shows, which is number one, to talk about Black women's experiences, which clearly, I mean, you know, my mom, and I'm second generation. There's not too much difference, and I know my grandmother probably had similar experiences when she was opened up her flower shop. My grandmother owned a flower shop in Memphis, and I think was one of the only Black women to do so for a very, very long time. And so I'm sure that she faced some similar things that you face and that I face. So the needle has moved, but not so much.
Yeah.
But what's the importance? So when you have those issues and when you're facing those type of challenges at work, I know we've talked about the importance of having, I'm going to call it a tribe, but just a circle of women. And I know that you had that, a circle of women that you can just rest with and on and go to, whether it's for prayer, whether it's just to kind of go to brunch and just get a release from day-to-day activity. How important is that?
That is very important. I'll just say that my mother was among a handful of florists. Hers was the only florist in a shopping center, which was, novel at that point in time. Miss Henderson, Miss Patterson, and my mother were running buddies. They more or less went to conferences together, and those were the three major florists at that time. But that at least that I was aware at my young age, I was aware of. But there we go again.
People that are important to you, you keep. So
I go to their space.
That's fine. The question was, that's good. Listen, I get it.
I go to your father, I go to my mom. So
the importance of having a tribe or sister circle.
Oh, absolutely. I got it. Right. Yes. Prayer circles are absolutely important. I mean, the women that I know participate in probably more than one prayer circle. I'm a member of a group that does Bible studies every Wednesday. And there's prayer and fellowship in that. I think during this difficult time, especially when people are sheltered in, this is a wonderful opportunity to develop those relationships in a deeper way. Because, if we're talking about getting back to normal, there's a lot of superficialities in what we were doing before COVID. It wasn't as deep and meaningful. And during this time, you have an opportunity to do that. And I think it's important to do that. And as we get to some degree of new normal, you can carry that with you, and that the strength and encouragement that a group of women provide for you as you move out of this situation would be very helpful. So I would absolutely call it a tribe, sisterhood, prayer circle, whatever you want to call it. And, organizations are, you remember AKA Erica's Delta, Links. Those organizations have a sisterhood, a bond too, that is very supportive and encouraging for women. And there's always more that we can do. I mean, there's always more we can hold each other up in situations like you just described, where women feel like they're disregarded or not given credit when they're actually making significant change. And that's what Women's History Month is all about.
Yep, I agree.
It's making sure that we elevate women, the women in history who have made a difference and moved women to a different level of effort, not only, but appreciation as well. And we're seeing women across politics, in medicine. Our sister who worked and at my vaccine, my COVID vaccine was the one that I can't remember her name right now, but she was on the people's list.
Yeah,
I
can't remember her name either, but I know what you're talking about.
You're right. Okay.
Moderna.
Moderna. Mine was Moderna, and I specifically said I want Moderna. I want the Moderna vaccine.
So we have about a little under 5 minutes left, and I have one last question. But before I ask the last question,
I want to tell you who my person was.
That's gonna be my last question.
Oh.
So before we get to the last question, I found this. My mother loves pomegranates, and that's a whole story. But she loves pomegranates. I don't understand it because it's seeds with meat on it. I don't get it, but she loves them. So I said I was gonna find a drink that has pomegranates in it, and when we come down, when we get our vaccine, we're gonna come down and make this for you. Okay. But you put a little simple syrup in the bottom. I got these pomegranate seeds because I'm not going to dig the pomegranate seeds out of the pomegranate.
Oh, okay. All right.
You get like a tablespoon of pomegranate seeds, put them in the bottom of your champagne glass. You're going to get an ounce of pomegranate juice, and this is pomegranate juice plus cranberry. You're going to get about an ounce of that.
Oh.
I don't know how it's going to taste, but I couldn't find just whole pomegranate juice. Well, I could, but I didn't. I needed to get something I was going to drink after I opened it. And so then you're going to put that in the bottom of the glass. You're going to get your spoon and you're going to just stir it. Boop, boop. And then you're going to top it off. And by the way, I don't do champagne, but this is very, very good. You're going to top it off with your champagne. And so, Mom, now I want to ask you, who is your person? I asked the question, who is the person in history that most inspired you? And that was the question that you had. That's how it is.
Oh, well, Ida B. Wells is the person that I had wanted to mention as just a dynamic woman who supported women's organizations. She traveled across the country advocating for women, writing about lynching, and her work on lynching of Black folks, and I'm sure just Black folks in general, but mostly men, won her an award in 2020. She got a Pulitzer Award for all of her writings and the impact that those writings had in dealing with the issue of lynching. But she was a dynamic woman. She was from my birth state and my home state, my home city. She was born in Mississippi, and she moved at an early age to Memphis, Tennessee, where she did all of her great work. So she moved a little later than I did. She passed away at 68, young.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
She did. She passed away in Chicago at 68. So she's a dynamic woman to be honored and lifted up among all of the other great women, including our vice president, who has, and all of the women in leadership who are doing great work.
Well, I want to say I have a whole list of people that inspire me, but number one on my list is you, and so I'm very thankful that
Thank you so much. You know, I just love
joined me on this Saturday when you could be doing other things. I sincerely appreciate you joining me.
No, I'm. Thank you for inviting me.
You're
Thank
very welcome.
You for having me.
This is very, very good, and I don't even really like pomegranate.
I'm a Cabernet person myself, so salute.
Salute. Happy Women's History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
You all have a phenomenal rest of your Saturday. Have a phenomenal weekend, and we will see you next Saturday.